For 8 decades, the US dollar has been the undisputed king of global finance. But that era is over. The weaponization of the dollar has ignited a global rebellion, led by a new powerhouse determined to break free. They have a playbook, new digital currencies to bypass American control, a new system backed by real assets, and new banks to write new rules. The consequences will be felt in every market and every home. The throne of the world's currency is up for grabs, and the fallout will be chaotic. The full story. A special ATM documentary. Watch now.
They report the chaos. We reveal the agenda.
Good evening and welcome to ATM. Tonight, we delve into a topic of immense global significance, the shifting landscape of international finance and the future of the US dollar. For an astonishing 8 decades, one currency has stood unchallenged, reigning supreme across the globe, the US dollar. It has been the undisputed king of global finance, the fundamental bedrock upon which international trade is built, and the ultimate, universally accepted measure of wealth and economic power. This dominance has meant that the dollar is not just a currency, but a symbol of stability and influence. However, as we observe the subtle yet significant changes, the very foundations of this long-standing reign are beginning to show visible cracks, hinting at a potential shift in the global financial order. Consider this. Virtually every major international transaction, from the vast oil deals that fuel our world to the intricate web of global commerce, is denominated in dollars. Furthermore, the vast majority of nations hold their critical financial reserves in dollars, underscoring its pervasive and central role in the world economy. But what if this seemingly invincible king is, in fact, facing its demise? What if, beneath the surface of daily global headlines and economic reports, a silent yet profound revolution is already underway, systematically shaking the very foundations of the established world financial order, threatening to redefine economic power structures? The signs are becoming increasingly clear. The cracks in its foundation are not just theoretical, they are visibly showing. This period marks the dollar's most significant challenge yet, signaling that its last stand for global dominance has truly begun. To fully grasp the magnitude of the current threat to the dollar's supremacy, it is absolutely essential that we first understand the immense power it has historically wielded and how that power was established. Following the devastation of World War II, a pivotal moment in financial history occurred. The Bretton Woods Agreement cemented the dollar's status, granting it an exorbitant privilege and formally establishing it as the world's primary reserve currency, a position it has held for decades. This unique status provided the United States with unparalleled advantages. It meant the US could effectively print money to finance its debts, exert significant control over global trade flows, and project an unparalleled level of financial and economic power across the international stage, shaping global policies and markets. Indeed, it was a golden age for the dollar, an era of remarkable stability and growth built upon a foundation of international trust and the sheer necessity of a reliable global currency. The world relied on the dollar, and its strength seemed unassailable, fostering an environment of predictable economic interactions. However, history teaches us that power, when left unchecked and wielded without restraint, can inevitably transform into a potent weapon. In recent years, the United States has increasingly utilized its formidable financial might with growing assertiveness and force, leading to significant geopolitical repercussions. The modern tools of financial warfare are diverse and impactful. Economic sanctions, the freezing of assets belonging to foreign entities, and the exclusion from the critical SWIFT international payment system. These measures have been strategically deployed, targeting nations from Iran to Russia, demonstrating the potent reach of US financial policy. A particularly significant and widely discussed event that served as a major turning point was the freezing of billions of dollars in Russian central bank assets following its invasion of Ukraine. This unprecedented move sent shockwaves through the global financial community, altering perceptions of dollar safety. This decisive action sent a profound chill through virtually every capital in the world, not just among adversaries, but notably even among long-standing U.S. allies. It highlighted the vulnerability of dollar-denominated assets held abroad, prompting a re-evaluation of financial security. The realization dawned on every nation: their meticulously accumulated reserves, their very national wealth, which was predominantly held in dollars, could potentially be seized or weaponized by the United States at any given moment. This created an urgent imperative to diversify and seek alternatives. This was not merely an isolated incident concerning Russia. It resonated as a global alarm bell, signaling a fundamental shift in the perceived reliability of the dollar as a neutral reserve asset. The implications extended far beyond the immediate geopolitical context, affecting all nations. Consequently, this event compelled nations worldwide to seriously question the long-term safety and security of their dollar holdings. It ignited a frantic and urgent search for viable alternatives, prompting a strategic re-evaluation of their reserve currency strategies and international payment systems. While the weaponization of finance may offer effective short-term leverage in geopolitical conflicts, many analysts now believe it could ultimately prove to be the most critical and damaging blow to the dollar's long-term dominance and its role as the world's premier reserve currency. And the tangible response to this weaponization of finance is not merely theoretical. It is already becoming distinctly visible and increasingly impactful in the patterns and practices of global trade, signaling a significant shift in economic alliances and transactions. Quietly, yet with increasing speed and determination, nations are actively establishing bilateral trade agreements that completely bypass the dollar. These agreements allow countries to conduct commerce directly in their own currencies, circumventing the traditional dollar-centric financial architecture. This strategic shift is not simply an act of defiance against U.S. financial hegemony. It is driven by a profound sense of necessity and a desire for greater financial stability and autonomy. Nations are seeking to insulate themselves from potential future weaponization of the dollar, ensuring more predictable trade flows. While the U.S. undeniably remains the world's largest economy, with exceptionally deep and liquid financial markets, a sustained trend of de-dollarization could lead to a significant depreciation of the dollar's value and a potential underperformance of U.S. financial assets on the global stage. Imagine a powerful visual: a single, massive container ship, laden with goods, majestically sailing from the bustling ports of China to the vibrant markets of Brazil, symbolizing the vast scale of modern global commerce and the interconnectedness of economies. Now, observe its hull closely. Instead of the familiar dollar symbol, the price tag for the transaction value prominently displays a rupee for the Indian rupee, a ruble for the Russian ruble, or a yuan for the Chinese yuan. This subtle yet profound change signifies a new era of currency diversification in trade. This seemingly small detail on a container ship's hull represents a profound and undeniable change in the global financial landscape, directly challenging decades of unquestioned dollar supremacy and ushering in a new, multipolar era of international finance. We've witnessed a significant global shift as the weaponization of the dollar has increasingly compelled nations worldwide to actively seek out and implement viable economic alternatives. This strategic move is not merely a reaction, but a proactive measure to safeguard their financial sovereignty and stability in an evolving geopolitical landscape. However, this is far from a scattered, disorganized, or spontaneous rebellion against the established financial order. Instead, it represents a meticulously calculated and highly coordinated movement, strategically orchestrated and led by a formidable new powerhouse that has emerged on the global stage, the BRICS bloc. This alliance is demonstrating a unified front in reshaping international economic dynamics. Once casually dismissed by many as nothing more than a simple, convenient acronym, the BRICS bloc has now undeniably evolved into the single greatest and most formidable challenge to the long-standing Western economic dominance that has characterized the global financial system for decades. Its growing influence is reshaping the very foundations of international trade and finance. The recent and strategic expansion of the BRICS alliance was not just a minor adjustment. It was a profound geopolitical earthquake that sent ripples across the international community. This move fundamentally altered the balance of power and introduced new dynamics into global economic and political discussions, marking a pivotal moment in contemporary history. By strategically incorporating major energy producers such as Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, alongside other strategically vital nations like Egypt and Iran, the BRICS bloc underwent a dramatic and fundamental transformation almost overnight. This expansion significantly bolstered its economic leverage and geopolitical influence, creating a more diverse and powerful coalition. Consequently, BRICS is no longer merely perceived as a loose club of large, disparate emerging economies. It has solidified its position as a cohesive and powerful coalition of the unaligned, collectively controlling an immense portion of the world's total population, a vast majority of its critical energy resources, and a substantial share of its global manufacturing capacity. This makes it a formidable force in the global economy. Their overarching goal is unequivocally clear and has been openly stated on numerous occasions: to actively forge a truly multipolar world order. In this new paradigm, the rules governing international finance, trade, and diplomacy would no longer be exclusively written or dictated solely from Washington, D.C., but rather shaped by a more diverse array of global powers. And the primary, most potent tool they are systematically employing to achieve this ambitious objective is the deliberate and gradual dismantling of the dollar's long-standing dominance within their own bilateral and multilateral trade agreements. This strategic shift aims to reduce reliance on the US dollar and promote alternative currencies for international transactions. It is crucial to understand that this isn't some distant, theoretical future plan or a mere speculative concept. Rather, it is a tangible and ongoing process that is actively unfolding and gaining momentum in the present moment. The shifts are already observable in global trade and financial flows. As extensively reported by reputable news agencies like Reuters and other financial publications, a growing proportion of trade transactions between Russia and India are now being increasingly settled directly in rupees, bypassing the traditional reliance on the US dollar. This marks a significant step in the de-dollarization trend. Furthermore, China and Brazil have successfully established a direct yuan-real clearing arrangement, a sophisticated financial mechanism that completely bypasses the need for the US dollar in their bilateral trade. This innovative system streamlines transactions and reduces currency conversion costs, strengthening their economic ties. And perhaps most significantly, there are now public and widely discussed negotiations concerning the pricing of Saudi Arabian oil sales to China directly in yuan, rather than the customary US dollar. This potential shift could have profound implications for the global petrodollar system and international currency markets. Massive and ambitious infrastructure projects, such as China's expansive Belt and Road Initiative, are being financed almost entirely outside the traditional dollar-denominated financial system. This strategic approach allows participating nations to avoid dollar-centric financial institutions and their associated conditionalities. For numerous developing nations across the globe, this non-dollar financing model presents an incredibly attractive and viable alternative to the often stringent and conditional lending practices imposed by institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. It offers greater flexibility and autonomy in development projects. China, through these initiatives, is not merely constructing roads, railways, and ports. It is actively and strategically building a comprehensive, parallel, and entirely non-dollar economic ecosystem. This new system aims to provide an alternative framework for global trade, investment, and financial cooperation, reducing reliance on Western-dominated structures. This is the absolutely crucial point that demands a thorough understanding. The BRICS bloc is not simply attempting to conduct trade using a wider variety of different national currencies. Their ambition extends far beyond mere currency diversification. They are pursuing a much more fundamental transformation. The BRICS nations are actively constructing a completely new and independent set of financial plumbing for the global economy. This includes establishing their own development banks, creating proprietary payment messaging systems to rival SWIFT, and potentially even introducing their own unified reserve currency to challenge the dollar's global status. Their ultimate objective is not just to incrementally reduce their reliance on the dollar's world or to simply exit its sphere of influence. Instead, they are fundamentally striving to design, build, and establish an entirely new global economic order, one that operates independently of the existing dollar-centric system. But what exactly would the architecture and operational dynamics of that new world look like? And more specifically, what are the precise tools, strategies, and the detailed playbook that these nations intend to utilize to effectively navigate and achieve their ambitious goals in this evolving global landscape? In the forthcoming segment of our discussion, we will delve deeply into the intricate details of the de-dollarization playbook. This will include exploring various strategies, ranging from the increasing adoption and development of digital currencies to the potential and intriguing prospect of a significant return to gold as a foundational asset in international finance. We've seen the motive and the players in the global plot to dethrone the dollar. But how do you topple an 80-year-old financial empire? You don't fight it on its own terms. You make it obsolete. You build a new system in the shadows, piece by piece, until the old one simply collapses under its own weight. Tonight, we open the playbook. These are the weapons and grand strategies of the de-dollarization rebellion. The first weapon in the playbook targets the dollar's ultimate source of control, the plumbing. The SWIFT messaging system, which routes nearly all international transactions, is the West's financial high ground. To challenge the dollar, you must first bypass SWIFT. The solution? Central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. China is years ahead with its digital yuan. Imagine a world where the Central Bank of China can transact directly with the Central Bank of Saudi Arabia, instantly, securely, and with no one in Washington ever seeing it. This isn't a theory. Projects like the M-Bridge are already testing this with multiple countries. They are building a new set of digital pipes, making the old plumbing irrelevant. The second, and more radical, play is to challenge the very nature of modern money. The US dollar is a fiat currency backed only by the full faith and credit of the United States. The BRICS gambit is to propose an alternative backed by something tangible, something real, commodities. For months, there has been serious discussion within the BRICS bloc about creating a new currency, potentially backed by a basket of commodities, with gold as a key component. This is a direct attack on the post-1971 system. It's a powerful narrative, especially for the global South, a return to real money that can't be endlessly printed to finance one country's debts. But a new system needs new rulemakers. The final piece of the playbook is to create an alternative to the Western-led institutions that have governed the world for 80 years. The new development bank, also known as the BRICS Bank, is the centerpiece. Unlike the IMF, which often imposes harsh austerity measures, the NDB's mandate is to fund infrastructure and sustainable development projects in local currencies, reducing dollar dependence. This bank, along with others like the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, forms a new financial safety net, giving developing nations an alternative to running to Washington for a bailout. So the playbook is clear: new digital pipes to bypass SWIFT, a new currency to challenge the dollar's value, and new banks to replace the IMF. The plan is brilliant. It's audacious. But what happens if it starts to work? In our final part, we will explore the geopolitical ripples and the economic fallout for the US, the world, and for you. We've seen the playbook, the digital currencies, the commodity-backed plans, the new institutions. But what happens when the game actually changes? What happens if this plan truly starts to work? We are now entering the most dangerous phase, the great unwinding of the dollar-centric world. The consequences will be felt in every nation, every market, and every home. For decades, America has enjoyed the exorbitant privilege. It could print the world's money to finance its towering debts, its massive military, and its consumption. What happens when the world no longer wants to buy that debt? The bill, after 80 years, finally comes due. Without a captive global market for its bonds, the US would face a brutal choice: either drastically cut its spending or print trillions more dollars, risking hyperinflation. The era of financing its deficits on the world's dime would be over. The economic pain at home would be immense. A world without a single, dominant currency may sound more fair, but it may also be far more unstable. The dollar system, for all its flaws, provided a predictable framework. A multipolar currency world with competing blocs led by the dollar, the yuan, and perhaps others could lead to intense economic friction. Trade wars could become more frequent. Currency manipulation could become a common weapon. And in a major global crisis, there would be no clear lender of last resort to stabilize the system. The winners would be the great powers at the center of these new blocs. The losers? Smaller, developing nations caught in the economic crossfire. So, what does this grand, geopolitical struggle mean for your money? As the dollar's global standing shifts, the value of dollar-based savings could erode over time. Assets that exist outside any single government's control, like gold and other commodities, may become increasingly important. The price of everything you buy, from your phone to your fuel, will likely become more volatile, tied to a chaotic dance of competing currencies. We are living through the end of a financial era. This is one of the most important, underreported stories of our time, and the conversation must begin now. What are your thoughts? Is the decline of the dollar inevitable and a positive change for the world, or is it a dangerous path toward instability? If this documentary has opened your eyes, please give it a like. Comment below with your thoughts and join the debate. And subscribe to ATM for more deep dives that go beyond the headlines. The throne of the world's reserve currency is, for the first time in 80 years, up for grabs. The race to succeed the dollar will be chaotic, dangerous, and it will define the 21st century. Thank you for joining me on ATM.